Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead fans across the nation, don't forget you have 1 month to pick up your very own Speakerhead limited edition keychain. Link in the description.
When it comes to Transformers, I love figures of all different shapes and sizes. But something I love more than just collecting these figures is putting them in really awesome poses. In fact, I love this so much I've made 4 separate videos on my channel talking about this topic. But in those videos, I just gave you guys general ideas of different poses you can do for your figures. So in this video, I wanted to change things up and give you guys some overall tips on how to improve your figure posing. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Speakerhead, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 tips on how to improve your overall figure posing. But before we get into this video, if you enjoy topics like these, make sure to like and subscribe. It'd really help me out. We have a goal to hit 1,500 subscribers by 2024, so if you want to help me reach that goal, make sure to subscribe. Also, if you enjoy any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. All the music on this label is completely royalty-free, so go ahead and use it for any of your content creating needs. Finally, I want to mention, if you want to support the channel directly and get access to some exclusive perks, you can become a channel member today. But now that we got all that out of the way, let me give you guys my top 5 tips on how to improve your overall figure posing. So the main reason why I'm making this video is because as much as I can give you guys different ideas on how to pose your figures, some ideas I just won't be able to do on videos. So when I was coming up for tips for this video, I was trying to think of the best ways I could tell you guys how to improve your overall posing. And because every Transformer figure is different, I want to give you guys some advice that would work on any Transformer figure you use, no matter what it is. So whether it be Hasbro Core Class, Hasbro Mainline, third-party Legend Scale, or even Masterpiece figures, these tips should help you improve your overall posing of your Transformer figures. And the first tip that I have for you guys is going to be to learn your figure's posability. So I'll just say it, and it might come to a shock to some people, but every single figure has different articulation. But in all seriousness, yes, every single figure has different types of articulation, and you gotta kind of figure out what your figure's articulation points are. Because depending on how posable your figure is, that's gonna really determine what kind of poses you can get your figure in. Some good examples is how articulated is the head. If your figure's head isn't able to look up or down or even possibly left or right all the way, then that's really going to limit the amount of poses you can do for that figure. Another great example is going to be the knee bend. So the knee bend is usually one of those articulation joints that every single figure has, but every single figure has a different amount that it can articulate. For example, some figures can barely get a 90-degree bend, while some figures can completely bend their knee completely flat. And then one final example is going to be the waist articulation. If the figure doesn't have an ab crunch or a waist swivel, then it's really going to limit the amount of posing you can do with that figure. And one little side tip going along with learning the articulation points for your figure, you also want to learn the proportions of your figures as well. Because just like articulation, every single figure has different proportions to each other. And this can really determine the amount of poses you can do for the figures as well. One example that comes to mind is going to be New Age Cyclonus. So this figure has pretty good articulation in his lower legs, and you figured that he'd be able to get into a kneeling position. But because his lower legs are so much longer than his upper legs, he actually isn't able to get into a kneeling position at all, he just falls over. So keep the proportions of your figures in mind, because that'll really help you figure out what poses you can and can't do with your figure. Now this kind of leads us into our second tip, and that's going to be learn your figure's weak points. Now when I say this, I mean think about if your figure has a heavy backpack, if it's not very stable, if it has any loose joints, anything like that. You have to really think about these types of things because it can really affect your overall posing experience. For example, if your figure has really loose leg joints, then it might be really difficult to put him in any sort of pose. Another example is if you want to have your figure standing in a certain position, but his backpack is too heavy so he just falls over in that position. So when it comes to figure posing, it is really important to think about what are the flaws in your figures, because that'll really help you figure out what kind of poses that are actually possible with that kind of figure. And I will say that there are workarounds for all this types of stuff, such as tightening joints by putting some sort of adhesive in the joint. And then for the heavy backpack example, you can always just lean him in a position so that way he's a little bit leaning forward. But these are definitely things you're going to have to think about when posing your figures, because if your figure literally can't stand in that position, then maybe you'll have to figure out a different pose for them. Now a simple way you can fix many of these stability issues is just by buying a figure stand. If you buy a figure stand that's actually able to hold the figure up, then you shouldn't really have too many issues with your figure falling over, because the stand's doing most of the work. Plus, with a figure stand, you're able to get your figures in a lot more positions that you normally wouldn't be able to do without one. For example, I like to use figure stands whenever I'm having a plane fly in the air or something like that. But if you really have a lot of stability issues with a certain figure, then maybe buying a figure stand for it would help you out. So now moving on to my third tip for you guys, and this is going to be learn natural poses for humans. Now I know to some of you guys it might sound pretty silly, but this actually is really important when it comes to posing your figures. Because our favorite robots are human shaped, you want to learn how humans naturally pose. For example, if you want to put your robots in a running position, you want to learn how a person looks while running. And for this, you can even look at diagrams for proper running form, and this will really help you out. And then another basic example is how a person just naturally stands. So when a person stands, they don't have their feet straight forward, their arms straight at their sides all the time. A person usually has a little bit of bend in their elbows, and their toes are usually pointed a little bit outwards. Obviously, everyone's natural standing position is different, but that's generally how most people stand. But learning how people look in certain positions really will help you pose your figures. Now moving on to my next tip, and that's going to be look at reference pictures online. So if you're still kind of struggling to figure out how to pose your figures, you can always look at pictures online of some of your favorite poses and try to replicate those. Because at that point you literally have a visual in front of you showing you what the pose looks like, so that really does help out a lot when trying to figure out how to pose a figure. Especially if you're trying to do some sort of iconic pose such as Ultra Magnus on the poster of the 1986 Transformers movie, or even Optimus Prime doing his signature jump with his blaster. And if you're lucky, you might even be able to find other people who've posed their figures in the pose that you're looking for, which should help you out a ton. But looking at reference photos will definitely help you learn how to pose much better, and it'll definitely help you when you're trying to do your own poses down the line. Now moving on to my final tip for how to improve your overall figure posing, and that's do the pose in real life. I know this might sound really silly, but if you're really struggling to figure out how your figure should be posed, doing the pose in real life should help you figure that out. Going back to my example of a running pose, if you're trying to figure out how you want your figure to be posed while running, literally get into a running position. That way you can figure out which arm needs to go where and which leg needs to go in what direction. And then doing this might also help you figure out how to keep your figure stable as well, because there's no point of posing your figure if it's just going to fall over. But doing the poses in real life will really help you figure out how your figure should be posed. And then if you want to combine the last tip with this one, you can take a picture of yourself in that pose and use that as a reference as well. Like I said, I know it sounds pretty silly, and if you really don't have a space you're able to do that, I completely understand. But I've personally done this before, and it's actually really helped me figure out a pose that I just wasn't able to figure out with my figure alone. But those are going to be my 5 overall tips to help you improve your figure posing. So whether you use one of these tips or all 5 of them, I hope at least some of these tips will help you with your overall figure posing for your Transformers. Because I've personally used all these different tips in the past, and they really helped me figure out what poses I wanted to do for my figures. So I figured I'd pass this advice to you guys and help you with your figure posing as well. But with that, that's going to be my tips for improving your overall figure posing. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if any of this advice was helpful, or let me know any of your own tips down below. But once again, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. And once again, if you enjoyed any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios, link in description. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate you checking out the video, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Peace. Shout out to our channel members, and a big shout out to our newest channel member, Toval76. Thank you for becoming a channel member. I really appreciate it. But once again, thank you to all our channel members. I really appreciate your guys' support.